Hello. In this tutorial, we'll talk about how you can use Rivery to create your own custom source simply by using a REST API. We'll start off the demonstration by choosing Create River. And rather than a source to target river, we're going to choose an action river to create our own custom connection. From here, you have two different options: a single REST action to call a single endpoint, or a multi-action river. Here, you would be leveraging one call to pass in credentials to essentially establish a bearer token or some other method of authentication, and then pass that as a variable into a second step. For this demonstration, we'll choose a single REST action. From here, all you need to do is get your API URL, and that is essentially your new source. By choosing a get method, you're going to be retrieving data from that API endpoint. You have the ability to authenticate using any ID password, OAuth 2, or as I mentioned, leveraging a bearer token using a multi-action. You can pass in any parameters or headers. I have one already built out here already. In this case, it's using this regress API endpoint. As I mentioned, I'm making a get call. It's a public authentication, so I don't need to plug in any ID or password. And if I go over to my results tab, you'll notice that I'm clicking on data to review the data. If I simply just wanted to get a response, I can do that. Or if I want to store that data as a variable to pass into the next step, I could choose that here. For this test, I'll stick with data. I have the ability to determine the type of data that I'm retrieving, whether it's JSON or CSV. If I need to paginate across multiple pages, I can choose that method here, simply by choosing the method of selecting a page or offset. Additionally, if there's any pausing or looping that needs to go on here, there's a variety of methods to do so. So in this case, as I mentioned, it's a public endpoint, so I'll go ahead and hit test REST action. This will essentially test my authentication. You'll see I get a response code 200 and also get a sample data set. Now here, this data is embedded in nested JSON. So what I'm going to do is choose just the location that I want to see, and that is the data itself, such as my ID, my email, my first name. That is all under my data element. So here, I'm going to choose my data element, and if I hit test one more time, it will choose that exact location and strictly ingest the data endpoint. Now that looks better. I've got my ID, my email, my first name, last name, etc., and I've authenticated with a success code 200. Now that that's successful, I can use this same connection in a source to target river to start pulling my data. So I'll go back to creating a new river and a new source to target river. And rather than my native 200 endpoints, I'm going to choose REST action. And I'm going to choose that same custom connectors from my list in my dropdown. From here, I'll load that data into Snowflake. Just need to choose where I want to load it, like my database and schema, and then choose my schema tab. And simply by hitting automap, Rivery will dynamically build out that schema structure for you. If the table doesn't exist, it will create the table. All you need to do is choose your primary key, and you're ready to start running upsert merges based on any parameters such as the last modified date.